We're on.
This is the Pompton Lakes Planning Board meeting of February 18, 2025. The following is the agenda of the meeting to be held at the Municipal Building, February 18 at 7:30 p.m. Formal written advance notice is required by NJSA 10:4-1 et sec. Has been provided of this meeting at least 48 hours in advance of today, giving the time, date, and location, and to the extent known at the time, the agenda of this meeting. Such notice stated that formal action may or may not be taken. The notice was posted on the bulletin board outside of the offices of the municipal clerk, reserved for this and other similar announcements. Provided to the Suburban Trends, the newspaper designated by the Borough Council to receive such notices, and filed with the Borough Clerk. Please stand for a pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good evening, all. Good evening. First thing tonight, we have oath of office to be given to John Keating as the Class 2 one-year term, ending 12/31/25. Sean Bootsma, alternate number 1, 2-year term to 12/31/26. And Chris Foster, alternate number 2, to fill an unexpired term until December 31st, 2026. Mayor?
Okay, guys, if you want to stand up, raise your hand.
We're missing one.
He's not here yet, so I don't know if he's the first meeting, so maybe you got confused.
Okay.
I just texted him. I state your names,
I, Sean Bootsma,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of New Jersey.
and the Constitution of the State of New Jersey.
I will bear true faith and allegiance
I will bear true faith and allegiance
to the same
to the same
and to the governments established
and to the governments established
in the United States
in the United States
and in this state.
and in this state,
Under the authority of the people,
under the authority of the people.
I will faithfully,
I will faithfully,
impartially,
impartially,
and justly
and justly
perform all the duties of
perform all the duties of
Planning Board member
Planning Board member
according to the best of my ability,
according to the best of my ability.
so help me God.
So help me God.
Thank you guys for your time. Thank you. Thanks for putting your time in.
Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you.
Welcome again, gentlemen.
Once you sign it, you can give it to me and then I'll make copies.
Okay. Okay, first item on the agenda is a roll call. May we have a roll call, please?
Yes. Mr. Simone?
Here.
Mr. Otto?
Here.
Mr. Trost?
Here.
Dr. Pendexter?
Here.
Mr. Bowlby?
Here.
Mr. Keating?
Here.
Mayor Sarah?
Here.
Councilwoman Kilberg? Here. Mr. Bootsma?
Here.
And Chris Foster is absent.
He's not in yet, so he's not absent yet.
Well, okay. I'll put a question mark. Okay, and we have Miss Crystal. Okay.
Good to go?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Okay, regular minutes of the reorganization and regular meeting minutes for January 21, 2025. May I have a motion for the approval of that, please?
Motion.
Motion by Mr. Trost.
Second.
Second by Ms. Bowlby. Any comments, questions, reservations? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, there's several correspondence here tonight. First one is a memo from the municipal clerk dated January 22, appointment approved by mayor and council of Chris Foster as alternate number 2. Second one, memo from Elizabeth Francis, notice of introduction of ordinance 2/2025, an ordinance of the Borough of Bloomingdale in the County of Passaic and State of New Jersey, amending Chapter 92 zoning of the Borough of Bloomingdale. Number 3, Riverdale permit application from Darmofalski Engineering Associates. Number 4 is a memo from Elizabeth Brandis, municipal clerk, dated February 12, forwarding resolutions 25-95, 96, and 97, approved by the mayor and council for award of contracts to professionals. Another memo from municipal clerk. Ordinance number 2511, an ordinance amending the downtown Pompton Lakes redevelopment plan as codified in 190-84 of the Code of the Borough of Pompton Lakes. And the last item is a newbie. It's a application from Colliers Engineering regarding DuPont Place over Acid Brook in Pompton Lakes for freshwater wetlands and flood hazard area application notice to neighboring landowners. Let's see. Okay, so tonight we're considering a change to the redevelopment plan that was recommended by them and went to the mayor and council for first reading. On the first reading, it's merely an approval to send it to the planning board, which was required for our review to determine whether it's consistent with the master plan. This particular application applies to a single property in the redevelopment area consisting of 60 Wanacue Avenue, which is the old gas station that's across the street from the shopping center. Since it was forwarded to us for discussion and recommendation, and ours is a recommendation back to the council, it is not a mandate. What I'm going to do is have our planner discuss what went on with that and how it got here, what changes are being requested, and then after she's complete, we'll have questions from the public and the members of the board, and then we'll have a discussion, and then finally we make a vote. If we choose to do, there's a resolution prepared, and that goes back to the council for their next meeting. So with that said, it's all yours.
Okay.
Yeah.
To help everybody better, the draft is highlighted of what Colliers is going to be discussing for 60 Wanacue to help you out.
Yeah. So this, as background as to who has responsibility over what in terms of redevelopment plans. This applicant for 60 Wanacue has been before the redevelopment agency for some time, presenting concept plans and having multiple meetings with the redevelopment agency to go over what those plans involved and what sort of amendments to the existing VRA2 zone they would need. Once the redevelopment agency was on board, I wrote the amendments as requested, and the council then is responsible for adopting them or not. Before they adopt them, they send them to you guys, the planning board, for consideration as it relates to their master plan. So I'll go over with you what all of the amendments are, but really what you should be commenting on in your recommendation to the council is if it is consistent with the master plan. If the council then votes favorably and adopts these amendments, you will see this again in the form of a site plan application, just like any regular old site plan that comes to this body. So, as part of the process that was before the redevelopment agency, I didn't bring plans because you're not reviewing the site plan at this point. But it's a multi-story, multi-family residential building with surface parking. However, they did need amendments that includes the permission to have ground floor residential uses. Currently, the redevelopment zoning requires ground floor commercial. The applicant has put forth the belief that because this is on the edge of the zone and setback, it's not an ideal location for commercial uses. There are also a number of bulk amendments that they are requesting, a maximum height of 4 stories and 50 feet, and a minimum rear yard setback of 4 feet. They are asking for front yard parking Typically, parking is prohibited in the front yard because typically we are seeing ground floor commercial at the street front, typical to a downtown, scenario, which is not, which is not what they are proposing to do. There are some setbacks for that parking that they need to have amended to allow that to come up to the lot line.
Can we interrupt you just for one moment?
Sure.
I'd like to get Chris sworn in so he can sit in on this.
Just hand me that paperwork. That's on me. Stand up, raise your right hand, just repeat after me. I state your name,
I, Chris Foster,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of New Jersey,
and the Constitution of the State of New Jersey.
I will bear true faith and allegiance
I will bear true faith and allegiance
to the same
to the same
and to the governments established
and to the governments established
in the United States
in the United States
and in this state.
and in this state.
Under the authority of the people,
Under the authority of the people,
I will faithfully,
I will faithfully,
impartially,
impartially,
and justly
and justly
perform all the duties of
perform all the duties of
Office of Planning Board
Office of Planning Board
according to the best of my ability,
according to the best of my ability.
so help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations. Thank you.
Thank you.
Welcome to the board.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so, they're asking for, modifications to the parking setback so that they can bring it up to the lot line. A provision to allow parking to be satisfied off-site. And the parking requirement would be 1 space per studio efficiency or 1 bedroom and 2 spaces for 2 bedroom. Loading docks, short-term loading, shall not interfere with any circulation, that's typical. Refuse shall be screened or stored inside a building, and the unit size, studio or efficiency shall be 500 square feet. 1-bedroom residences shall be a minimum of 625 square feet, and 2-bedroom residences shall have a minimum of 940 square feet. Again, these are all, standards that the applicant, and the redevelopment agency together agreed upon. I just put them into this format to fit into your, redevelopment plan within the zoning code. Now also, as I mentioned, it's your responsibility to, determine if this is in keeping with your master plan. So I looked at your 2007 master plan, which is essentially replicated in your 2017 reexamination. So 2 things that I found in there is downtown revitalization goal is to revitalize the downtown business district through market-driven redevelopment initiatives that will foster private development. And then in discussion about downtown redevelopment, it's not a goal, but it's sort of a vision that redevelopment areas facing one another on both sides of Wanacue Avenue will create a balanced, unifying sense of place. So I extracted that content from your master plan to give an example of how these amendments are consistent with your master plan.
With regard to the changes that are being requested, you went over them, but just to compare them, for example, with the parking, there's
Yeah.
some off-site parking with this, that,
They are allowed to have off-site parking.
okay.
Mhm.
I just want to make sure that people understand that part of this application includes insufficient number on the site supplemented by off-site.
Yes.
And then also, can you give us the changes that were made in the square footage of the living units to compare what would have been had this amendment not been requested
Yes.
to what is being requested?
I know that's in here, let me find it. I might have to pull up your code on my device. Here we are. Okay. It otherwise requires a one-bedroom to have 650 square feet, and I have lowered that to 500. It required a two-bedroom to have 950, and this was 940. Oh wait, I apologize. The one-bedroom,
Was 7.
I apologize. The one-bedroom was 650, and now it is 625. The 500 is for a studio efficiency unit, which was not even,
Wasn't considered
it
before.
wasn't considered, yeah.
So the 500 is new completely,
Right,
and you're saying that the one bedroom's gone from 650 to 625?
yes, and
And
the
the
two-bedroom.
two bedroom
went
from 950 to 940?
Exactly.
Okay. Are there any other significant deviations that we can compare or should compare?
I mean, there's the height, which is.
50 feet here.
Mm-hmm. And it was. I should have made a side-by-side chart. I will do that next time. Looks like it was 4 stories and 60 feet.
Then
Oh,
this is,
no, just kidding. I apologize. I'm gonna have to pull that up on my device, and you'll have to give me a minute.
sure. And besides, there's a lot of little things in here that changed, like the front yard parking. I mean, it's kind of a unique lot, so it's not like you have a lot of flexibility. And besides, this is what's been approved, so we're not really commenting on whether we like it or not. We're just saying it's either consistent or it's not. And the elevation changes shouldn't be anything major, and the square footage seemed to be more of a de minimis change.
Yeah, but this isn't approved yet. This is a recommendation.
Yes, whether it's consistent. All we're saying is what's being requested here, which was read by first reading.
Right.
All right, it's consistent. So if we had a requirement of 1,000 square feet and somebody was offering 100 square feet, then it's not consistent. We could say that to the council, and they can choose to accept it or ignore it. So we're not approving any numbers here. I'm just looking to see how much things changed by, so we can make a fair determination of consistency. Does that make
Yes,
sense?
Yes, that's correct. It's a very limited thing that we're doing here. It's just a comparison of consistency, like Mike said.
Sean?
Is the introduction of a new studio or efficiency space, is that a large deviation, as in that before that one bedroom is the lowest that an apartment could go to?
It's a change, and I was gonna get to that one when we're done on this, because
Well, we're not looking for changes from the zoning plan. We're looking for consistency with the master plan. So even if there was a significant change from the zoning code, that doesn't mean it's inconsistent with the master plan. There's 2 separate documents.
okay.
So, I mean, the master plan does not put forth bulk type standards. It's more a vision as to the development of the downtown. And it would be one thing if it said, that buildings should be 3 stories and we're asking for 10, then that's inconsistent with the master plan.
Mhm.
But the master plan it says nothing about what type of units or sizes of units. So there's no,
Just the fact that it's residential units as compared to, for example, manufacturing. Like, if they didn't want that in the master plan, it wouldn't be there.
yeah. But I mean, it's just not even addressed in the master plan, so it can't possibly be inconsistent if it's not even mentioned.
Okay. Well, the height of 4 stories and 50 feet reflects basically 4 stories of residential units.
Yes.
That's not, again, inconsistent with what the master plan had in mind when it said about residential multifamily.
Right, certainly because the master plan is asking for multifamily residential, if we were putting if a developer was putting something in there that was all single-family homes, then we would say that's not consistent. Because it's a different use entirely. Whereas,
And one of the inconsistencies, if you will, that is being, not any, but one of the changes, if you will, is having no commercial on the first floor.
right, and
That is a change.
and that is something that you could comment on, absolutely.
And there again, there's reasons given why they want to do that, and as long as we feel it's consistent in general, we can still say that this does not conflict with the master plan. Or as we say, it's not inconsistent.
Not inconsistent, correct.
Right,
I love
not
the double
inconsistent.
negative.
Me too.
All right, but for now, don't worry about it.
I apologize, I should have had that in front of me and it just didn't occur to me.
Okay, so that's basically the essence of it, and the property is unique in that it sits basically landlocked between a street, 2 streets, the Wanacue River, and a property behind it. So the site is what the site is, and you've got the information in front of you about what is being changed, requested to be changed, and for a recommendation. So at this point, I think I would like to get comments from the members of the board as to whether they have any questions, and if Kristen can answer those to our satisfaction, then we can go to the public and get comments from them and then make a decision. So does board member have questions regarding the consistency with the master plan?
So if I'm understanding correctly by everything was said, consistency for the square footage is pretty close, consistency for the height is pretty close, and it's really just the retail.
But as Kristen was saying, it's more of the zone, that's more of the zoning aspect of it. I'm just trying to, this has a long history, this project took a while to form, and I just want people to have an idea of what they're proposing, because it helps to put it in a perspective. But the main thing, I guess, on this one is that there's no commercial. I mean, that's probably the main crux.
That is the main thing. So really what you're looking at is, I'll put it into my own words, so I'm not quoting the master plan here, so don't use this verbatim. But your master plan looks at creating an active, vibrant downtown with mixed use, with residential and commercial uses. In order to do that, that is normally done with a mixed-use building, ground floor commercial and residential above, or maybe some office. This applicant is looking to have a fully residential building that is set back from the street, which it is now your responsibility to say, do those changes, namely the fact that instead of being on the street, there will be parking between the building and the street, and the fact that it will be a multifamily residential building rather than a mixed-use building. Do those 2 changes deviate from the master plan to such an extent that it is no longer consistent with the vision of the master plan? Or can they still work within that vision and in the broader picture, still further the goals of the master plan in terms of creating this downtown?
Okay, that's a good summary.
Well, you're always referring to commercial use, okay, in the master plan. And the master plan in 2511 that the council just introduced, right here in paragraph B, which is 19084, zoning districts, it talks about, commercial, but it also talks about quality community facilities. The town hasn't had a teen center or any kind of civic center since this place damaged this one. We haven't had a teen center since the roof almost caved in on the building. Has there been any thought given to creating a first floor community type floor, some area over there for the community's use?
So first off, the Civic Center, we just got our permits today to start the Civic Center in the back, so the Civic Center will be back in the next month or two, back to being a Civic Center. The Teen Center, the Recreation Commission at this time doesn't believe we need a Teen Center, that's why they run away from the Teen Center. They don't want to have a Teen Center anymore, so there's no need for it at this moment. Just give you guys that information.
Was that because of lack of use?
Lack of kids showing up, yeah, staff, costs, high costs.
And now I understand there's an agreement with Wayne.
Well, there's two separate things. We do teen dance once a month at the VFW, that the VFW lends us their space, and we have a dance once a month for the kids fifth grade to eighth grade. And then, yes, a new arrangement is being worked out with Wayne's YMCA right now to use their building at the residential rate in Wayne for our residents.
So at least they have a place to go if they are so desire.
If they want to, yes.
Lisa?
I'm trying to understand this all. So this property needs, if I'm not mistaken, 9 different variances. So if you don't give, who gives those variances? I'm under the assumption it was the planning board.
It's not variances, it's an amendment to the zoning.
All 9 of them?
Yes, this is, the document that was distributed is an amendment to the zoning code.
But why is it an amendment to the zoning code?
Well, to the redevelopment plan, sorry.
But why is it an amendment to that? If I were a homeowner and I wanted to do this on my home in town, I'd have to go for a variance, and I'd have to notify everybody within 200 feet of my property to say, I want to make these changes. Are you okay with it, Mr. Neighbor? Are you okay with it, Mr. Neighbor? That would be the route that I would have to take as a homeowner. So it kind of seems to me like that should be the same route. When the guy from the car wash came and he wanted variances, instead of us creating an amendment to the code, we made him go through the
Well,
variance.
this is a redevelopment plan, not just a code, so it works slightly differently.
Yes.
But we don't have to amend, or the council doesn't have
Well,
to.
yeah, I mean, it's up to the council, it's,
They can say, go this route instead.
the council can say no.
Okay.
I guess I was under the assumption that it would come here and you would take each one individually and
No,
decide.
the only thing that this body looks at is consistency with the master plan.
That's it. Very limited capacity. It's just consistency. That's it. That's what we're here to decide today.
And then at some point, if everything goes through, they come back here for site plan review. However, the site plan review is also a limited process on the planning board.
So,
For example, we can't turn around at the plant, if they came back here, we couldn't turn around and say, no, we don't want to have the elevation be that high, or, we want 10 units instead of 15 units. We won't be able to change that. The limitations on the planning board after a redevelopment change is going to be limited to the functional part of the property.
so it's either all or nothing.
Now, this is a recommendation board, so they're gonna make a recommendation, that's all the best they can do right now.
Okay, so recommendation. But I mean, so if there's 9 different, see, I was under the assumption, and I heard the word, I went to redevelopment meetings, so I know that the word variance was being thrown around. If there was 9 of them, it's not like they can say, well, we don't like this one, and we're gonna say yes to 8 and no to 1. They would either, it's all or nothing.
Well, the governing body could look at this and say, we're not comfortable with this and we don't want to, we want it to be either not adopted or modified. That could be, the governing body could do that,
But not us.
but not us.
But there's a big difference between a property that's within one of the redevelopment areas and a regular property where Tim or I live. That's really the crux of it. The planning board process for normal projects doesn't go to the council, doesn't go to redevelopment agency, it comes here. We get to take it from beginning to end, and it can be appealed depending on what we decide, but other than that, the decisions are all made here. We're allowed to grant certain variances here. Some of the variances have to go to the zoning board. So, other than redevelopment areas, what you're talking about, that's what happens.
So you don't really have a say in any of this, though?
In the redevelopment areas, which includes all of the middle of town, and there's the other areas on the extended limits of it, on those properties, we do not have the same level of approval. That is done at the redevelopment agency. So, when it comes to us, it has, is right to say pre-approved conditions, if you want to call it that we can't change. Other ones, though, we can say, well, you guys proposed an entry onto the street, but we don't like, the width of it, or we don't like the landscaping, or we don't like the fact that, there's a site problem. We can bring those things up, but we can't change the basic concept of the building. So the number of units, the height of the building, the square footage of the units, those are all predetermined.
That's only redevelopment that has to
Yes.
say.
Yes.
Well,
Is
because,
that-
Yeah, I mean, if it's helpful, I can specifically read to you the section of the statute 40A:12A-7, subsection E, which is specifically what we're doing this evening.
Please
So
do.
that would be helpful to
Yeah.
everybody to hear. If you have any questions about, the verbiage of the statute, let me know. Prior to the adoption of a redevelopment plan or revision or amendment thereto, the planning board shall transmit to the governing body within 45 days after referral a report containing its recommendation concerning the redevelopment plan. This report shall include an identification of any provisions in the proposed redevelopment plan which are inconsistent with the master plan, and recommendations concerning these inconsistencies and any other matters as the board deems appropriate. So that's all we're doing. It's basically, all or nothing, like you said. And we're just looking at, are these consistent with the master plan? That's it. And this recommendation, one way or another that we're making to the council, they can either take it or leave our recommendation. But this is just, prescribed in, the law that this is, a function of the planning board, which, the governing body can consider, take it or leave it.
And I'm sure the redevelopment agency, during its extended process, because it took quite a few meetings, right? They've gone over a lot of these things, and I'm sure there were proposals that were not approved or not agreed to, and other things that were agreed to. There was some discussion about some of these reasons for the variances that they have proposed. Let's face it, the site, like as I said earlier, it's an awkward, inconsistent site in the sense that it's bounded, it's irregular, it's in an area where there's control by the county, by the borough, by the state because of freshwater wetlands. It's kind of like an eyesore at this point. I mean, it's been basically unkempt for I don't know how many years. And, we've got this nice shopping center across the way. So it's a way of helping that area. It's really going to be a matter of opinions as to whether this board is okay with it, ultimately recommending something back to the council, and whether the council is in favor of it. And, I don't see anything in it that's jumping out and saying, oh my God, what did they approve? So, I think, if you want more further discussion, I certainly would entertain additional comments or questions from the board members.
May I add
But
something?
just as long as it limits to what you said.
Yes, which is again, just looking at the consistency between the master plan and the ordinance, redevelopment plan changes. Also, the planning board has the ability to, alongside of making a consistency determination, to also make some additional recommendations as well that have to be, the whole board has to agree to them. So they can be sort of additional pieces, if you say, okay, we find it consistent, but X, Y, and Z. You can also, there are some recommendations that you all would like to make and agree upon. It can't just be a recommendation from one specific member. It has to be, the whole planning board agreeing to that recommendation. That will be included in the resolution, determining consistency or not.
Okay, so,
Would I be able to make some, I don't want to say comments, but just kind of restate my understanding of what we are doing? Because I do have a kind of flow chart and a series of things that I think that this board is going to be looking at. And I'm just trying to say this in the air, that way I, get a sense of if I'm on the right track. Am I allowed to do that? Okay.
go ahead.
So it seems
So
like
it's not a Venn diagram.
not a Venn diagram. It's not exhaustive by any means, but it seems to me like the process that we're looking at here is, we do understand that this is a special case lot. We understand that we're trying to make some exceptions to make something get done to contribute to the master plan. But I think the two questions that we are looking at is, one, is this lot actually a special case? Do we think that it is, something that, we have to kind of make an exception for, to get a vision pushed through? We could talk about that, the regular shape, stuff like that. And then two, do these recommended changes comply with the vision that is given in the master plan? And then of the changes in that second part, if we decide that this is a special case, this is something that needs to be amended, here are the things that I've heard from everyone else that jump out to me, and you can let me know if I'm missing anything or misunderstanding anything. The first thing that I see that jumps out is that there is no first floor commercial space. We are looking for a vibrant, unified downtown. Usually that involves a decent amount of people living in the space that is made up with the residential, but we do not have anything, for the community at the bottom. It might be out of the way, so we might not need that anyway. Two, we do not have any alternative community-oriented space that would take up the space of a commercial space on the first floor. We brought up the idea of a teen center or another community type thing. This would be purely residential. Third, we have lots of small variances to, the height, different things. Those seem to me to be mostly compliant with the vision of the master plan, but that is up to debate. And then the last thing that I can think of as a larger variance is the explicit inclusion of economy or studio type units. As we've said, there was nothing that was specifically excluding that in the master plan. However, I wonder if bringing up something like this, it was a kind of omission that was, that wasn't on our minds. So I'm wondering, are these, smaller units, the changes to the unit size, going to change the vision that we envision for the master plan? Again, I understand that as a board, we are only giving a recommendation, and the recommendation is limited to whether or not this complies with the master plan. However, again, that vision is for a vibrance and a unified and a sense of oneness within the downtown, and these are the different things that I think that we are looking at.
Thank you. Mayor?
Just want to add, and I'm sure you're all aware of that, we were redoing that whole corner, right? We have the county project going on as we speak. They put a shovel in the ground, building 55 units with office spaces and doctor's space on the bottom. We're redoing this. They're going to actually share some of the parking, I think, with this county project. So we're trying to beautify that whole corner, make it grow into a nicer looking area. As I think somebody mentioned, it's been sitting empty for 20 years as an eyesore to the community right now.
Well, one other thing I should mention is the redevelopment plan calls for residential over commercial, but on Lakeside Avenue, we approved a fairly large project, which is all residential. And again, there's logic to where the retail should be and where it shouldn't be. And I think maybe that might have gone into this because it's like, if it's gonna be retail, right across the street, you have like 18 stores or something. And if you put a small store here with limited parking, you're gonna basically have limited availability for commercial use. So there's a lot of pros and cons, and you have to balance the two. Nothing's perfect. God only knows. And so,
And there was retail, just what you're talking about, Lakeside Commons had retail, and the redevelopment board decided not to put the retail back there, just for what you're speaking of.
yeah. So, does anyone else have questions, or I'll open it up to the public?
The ordinance, is that just gonna pertain to this zone, or?
This specific property, not even the zone, just this property.
But why, and
So-
this is just a question that I have, why do we have a 6-page, which is numbered wrong at the bottom of the pages, by the way, so we can't, it's like labeled page 1 of 1, 2 of 2, 3 of 3.
I don't know what you have, because mine doesn't have any numbers.
I have the
Oh,
resolution
that's
that
a
the council
resolution.
passed,
Oh, okay.
that's 6 pages, 5 pages, and it's, this section of it, while it is highlighted here and we're told that we're only commenting on this, is only a very small portion.
It's
in-
all
in-
Article 190-84, so the article is being amended, even though only,
So when the council, and this is just for my clarification, we're discussing this, but when the council votes, they're changing everything that's in here.
no. The only stuff that's getting changed is highlighted.
That's why I gave you the draft, because it's easier to look at.
If you look here at number 7, it says, with respect to block 7,000, lot 4,
That's
DVDs,
all existing and that's not changing.
well, it says, shall be further modified as follows.
That's existing code. It's not being modified by this
Why does it say
amendment.
shall,
That's what your code says. The only section of code that is being amended by the current ordinance is Article 190-84 B4.
We'll let the council sort that one out.
And it says shall be further modified on B4 as well as on the preceding sections because it is modifying the, just B1, B2, and B3. So each of them, and in the one before that you asked about is A7, so it's modifying A1 through A6. A6 has the same language, A5 has the same language, it's all modifying the language that precedes it.
So in a nutshell,
So they're making
No,
modifications.
this happened long ago. In other words, 7, which you raised.
Yeah,
It has a parenthetical comment after it saying that happened in 2018.
Would I be able to make unrelated comments before anyone else chimes in, or we give it to the public?
Just wait, we're still on this.
I didn't know if we were or not. That's why I asked.
I think what Kristen is saying is what you see highlighted, which on our sheets are gray, is the changes.
Okay.
And so we either say that the changes are consistent with master plan or inconsistent with master plan. And that's it, right?
Exactly.
That's it. So what did you want there, Sean?
Yeah, going back to the thing that's in gray and whether or not it is consistent with the master plan's vision for a unified downtown, I'll just say, yes, I want to go, is this a special case? Again, in the format that I brought up. If it's been sitting absent for 20 years, that does bring flags to whether we should make an exception to this. We've seen the success of the lakeside property. So I hope that my framework wasn't a little bit too harsh on this. The main things that I would think of for this recommendation are if there is any possibility for doing something with that first floor, or if that's even better. And then the only other thing that I'm just seeing right now is front yard parking shall be permitted. I do not know if that is, new to this area, or if that's something that is pretty common in the downtown. But I'm wondering if the parking might, take away from a unified walkable feeling. Those are the only questions, and I do not have any conclusions.
Well, parking, again, you go by what's there. And just visualize, take the building that's being proposed and bring it to the curb line. And then park in the back of the building. That's what the current ordinance is basically saying, no parking in the front. Because all the buildings are lined up along the road on Wanacue Avenue, it makes a lot of sense. But because this is a pocket, it's a little pocket in one spot, to bring that building out to the front, it's going to look odd, is a good word maybe. Mm-hmm. And my own personal opinion, since we're just throwing things out there, I think it would be worse to have the building up front and to let the building, stand in the back. The other thing pushing it in the back does is it reduces the height image from the street. Mm-hmm. So instead of putting, you've got a lot that drops down, you're going to be pushing it back 60 feet or whatever it is, 50 feet. It makes more sense, and I'm sure that's why the redevelopment agency recommended this, because of the uniqueness of the site. And we all have to consider uniqueness. I mean, it's actually part of the whole zoning process.
Right across the street in Lidl, you might want to call it front yard parking, but you have head-in parking to Wanacue Ave where all the EV stations are. It's the same thing.
Okay.
Yeah, true. All right, so anybody else on the board have questions?
Mr. Chairman, if you don't mind.
Yes, sir.
So again, I'm just going to give my opinion on whether it.
I would like I would like this to be more of the question period. I'm giving Sean some latitude here, but I'd like this to be more of the questioning of Kristen or the mayor or the councilwoman who might have some insight. And then at some point, we discuss it. Okay. So if you're going to discuss it with respect to why you would or would not want something to happen, I'd rather wait.
Okay.
If you have questions, let's bring them up.
Yeah, no questions. It's just I would like to make a change that my recommendation is, if this board votes for it and in favor of it, one recommendation changes. Okay. I'm not in favor of the single 500 square foot suites.
Okay.
Right now we have on the same side of the street, opposite side of the river, you do have a place that has no commercial and single, we'll call it suites in there. That's not consistent with our master plan. It's there because of history, but it's not consistent. So if there's a way of putting our 2 cents in saying, well, we'll approve it, but we're not in favor of that, Now, the question is that something that we can do, and then, or is that one, we put it all in favor, it goes to the mayor council, it comes back, and then when they apply for their building, that's when we say, no single suites. When does that happen?
We approve it, but make recommendations.
Okay.
You would need to find a way to link that to the master plan, though, showing why a studio is inconsistent with the master plan. You can't just say we don't like it.
We could say that the residential is inconsistent because it has no commercial.
Yes.
So if we're going to approve of that because of the particular property, we would say that, yes, I'm okay with, just like we built over by the Army, or the Salvation Army, single and double
One bedroom.
bedroom
What
apartments.
does the,
So what
I don't
we're,
understand the language.
what we're saying is the studios, what we're trying to say is, we think the studios are inconsistent with the master plan.
How so? That's what I'm
Uh,
saying.
we just do, it's not, it's.
You have to tie it to something in the master plan.
Do we
Okay.
know how many studios there are, by the way?
Well,
It is, but we're trying to move away from that.
Yeah,
That's the
so-
point.
No, I'm just trying to find out whether it's just a
The master
couple
plan
that
goes.
is just a couple, or whether it's a predominant number. That's all.
Right,
I think it's
Right.
only a couple.
Yeah.
It's only a couple, I'm sorry.
yeah. But that's what I think as a planning board, that's what we're trying to move away from. All right, whether it's in the master plan or not, it doesn't matter at this point. We're gonna start reviewing the master plan. This is something we'll look at. But I do think it's moving away from what we really want.
Okay.
Is that fair enough?
Because I
It's
think,
not in the master plan.
yeah, the inconsistency, I think, is what the purpose of attracting, what are you gonna attract by having a one bedroom and two bedroom versus what are you attracting for a suite? So what the consistency is, we want residential will allow, but we're gonna say certain residential.
But the master plan does not say that.
So what does the master plan say right now?
It doesn't
says-
say anything about
It doesn't say anything about
studios.
limiting different types of residential units. It says,
Doesn't say-
if I,
Allows one bedroom and two bedrooms?
no, it does not. It does not.
They're not in there? Well, they have to be in there because it says something about square footage.
That's the
Zoning.
zoning ordinance, not the master plan.
Zoning ordinance, and that's really what comes from the redevelopment agency.
So let me understand, just so I'm understanding what people are asking. Where is the issue, and not that I care one way or the other, where is the issue with a studio apartment to fit the square footage that's left in the building in order to get someone else to live in there? I mean, it would be dead space if we didn't do that, it would be not used.
Well, not being beneficial to seeing what the floor layout plan is, I wouldn't be able to answer that, but because it's been already approved by the redevelopment agency, I don't think we have the ability to say, no, you can't put a 500 square footer in there. We can certainly opine as to whether we think it should or shouldn't be there, but it can't be more than a simple recommendation, Kristen or Alex?
Yes.
A simple recommendation, but
Just,
that's
yeah,
it.
Consistency. I mean, we can talk about all these things we don't like, but ultimately it's looking at the master plan and seeing if there's consistency
So
between the
technically,
amendments.
it's not
That's it.
inconsistent.
Technically not inconsistent.
But we could say, if they want to, it would be nice to only have one and two
Sure,
bedrooms.
right.
Yes.
You can, include in, your report, which is the resolution ultimately, that's going to be, eventually passed, and the council's and governing body's going to consider it. If you want to have a, recommendation at the bottom, we don't like X, Y, and Z, you can, but it doesn't matter in terms of, ultimately what we're doing today is making a recommendation as to whether or not it's consistent.
And I believe that.
You can have some extra comments if you want, but,
We're saying that it's not inconsistent, but it's not consistent either if it's never been done, right?
I think that's kind of a double negative
Well,
there.
that's what
So
I'm
I think
saying.
it's so, right, yeah, because it's technically not inconsistent.
The statute requires that we show that it's not inconsistent.
Correct.
Not that we show that it is consistent.
Correct. I can read the statute again if you'd like.
No, I understood it the first time. I'm just trying,
You'll have to talk down to it.
What we should be focusing on is not interpreting what was specifically approved, but whether the approval of this request for zoning, which is outlined with these highlighted areas, is inconsistent. And if somebody said they wanted to have a different use, you could make that statement, but residential is residential, whether it's
I understand.
500 square feet or 1,000 square
I
feet.
think the issue is, if you don't have the plan, you don't know how many units there are in there. that are
It's
500
irrelevant.
square feet.
It has nothing to do with that.
It's irrelevant
People are
here,
asking why people are wondering, why people don't want that.
but it's irrelevant here.
Here, this board doesn't mean.
See, the redevelopment agency is the one that said, this is what we're recommending. You guys sent it here to have our
Well,
comments.
I thought that when we were sending it here, we were sending it here because you decided on this
Mm-mm,
stuff.
no.
I didn't realize that you weren't deciding on this stuff.
No.
And then it,
Redevelopment agency decided it, subject to the council's approval. Stop. Council says, okay, we have a first reading and a second reading. You had a first reading, and the law requires that it comes here to the planning board for determination of whether it's consistent or not. Then it goes back to you guys, and the council then has its discussion, and you can say, I'm not crazy about this or that, but overall it's fine, I'll approve it. Or you could turn around and reject it. I mean, it's a council
And just for your
decision.
educational purposes, for the planning board, what we will be doing when we do revisit the council, we will have our planner there, we will have our redevelopment executive there, and we'll have, what's next?
And if you want me there, I'll be there as well, it's up to you.
First, we'll put the pilot together, so any of the questions the council has would be answered by those personnel that are there, the experts that are dealing with that.
And then the council has to look at overall what they have there, what's being proposed, and if you find that, you're okay with it, then you vote an approval. If you're not okay, then it goes back to square one, or maybe
I
two.
think this is a step. I'm not understanding why this is even a step if you don't really have a
It's
step.
under the local redevelopment law. It's just essentially a part of the statute, and that's what the law says, and ultimately, this is all that we're able to talk about tonight, is just consistency, So the legislature dictated.
So in effect, the resolution that we pass more or less has to be approved here if we find that it's not inconsistent. And that's what has to be. We can't arbitrarily say, you know what, I don't like the 500 square foot units, I'm voting against it. That would be challenged. You're almost obliged to to recommend that this be considered by you guys because it's consistent. And then what happens on your end is up to you all. You've got 7 people up there. And you all have, I'm sure, pros and cons, but that's where we are.
I get it. I'm not the only one asking the questions.
No, but you're saying you're confused about the process.
Well, I'm not, I just don't understand why this is a step if it really doesn't.
Because it's the law.
Because it's the
Or
law.
ordinance. Yeah, we don't have a choice in certain things, and even when it comes to our own applications, when they come to us, there's certain things that we are required to do.
So I have a question. If we didn't have a redevelopment agency, would it just come here?
Probably,
And
yeah.
this would have been the whole step.
Somebody else would act as a redevelopment agency. Some entity would be,
It would be planning and zoning?
sometimes the mayor and council, some towns have the mayor and council act as the redevelopment entity on an as-needed basis.
When the redevelopment agency was brought up many years ago, the borough took on a very large responsibility. And it was to develop what you see going on, and one can argue whether or not something should have been this or should have been that, but there's been a lot of positive stuff that's come out of that redevelopment agency.
I think my question was only, I want to know how the process works. Like, I thought that when it came here, you decided on each individual thing. I didn't realize it was all or nothing, and I'm just trying to wrap my head around, because then everybody's talking about it, but you really don't get to vote on it, so I'm just trying to.
And what we talk about is essentially either we do or don't comment back. So you might get something back that says, the planning board found that this is consistent with the master plan. We think you should consider A or B. And that's the extent of it, right? I mean, that's all we can say is you might want to consider. So if somebody here, and we all agreed on something, because it couldn't just be one person. So if the board agrees to to recommend it, and the board agrees to recommendations to say, you know, we would like to see something else done, or something in addition to, or instead of, it's not binding. It just comes to you with this is what we saw.
So what would happen if we agree that it is inconsistent with the master plan, because there is no retail on the first floor, which is a legitimate inconsistency? And if we decide that it is inconsistent with the master plan, what are those steps?
Well, it'll be challenged only because I'll tell you right now, you've already approved it. We have approved it. No, the town has approved this exact thing with no commercial.
That goes to,
That's not accurate. It wouldn't, I don't think that that's accurate.
Which is it?
The town hasn't approved it?
Just because something happens on another site doesn't have bearing on this site.
no, what he's saying is the redevelopment agency approved it.
The redevelopment agency agreed to it. There's not an approval process. So if you submitted that it was inconsistent with the master plan, then the same thing that happens if you say it is consistent. You would send that by way of a resolution to the governing body, and they would take that under advisement.
Just advisement.
Yes.
No, we can only give recommendation, correct?
That's it.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think we take anything else.
But-
That's what it is.
But the
You can only do recommendation.
Yeah, you can only, but the redevelopment agency does not have approval authority in terms of what the project is going to be. They are only recommending as well.
And the lakeside property, that is the example of one that is a purely residential property. Yes. Okay. For what it's,
So just, I know everybody knows this, but we had the old Salvation Army there, there was retail with some other shops next to it. When that builder came in, that was torn down, and they put retail, they got rid of the retail, and put first floor residential, and built it. That's what happened in St. Contents.
for what it's worth, it's a gorgeous property, and I remember seeing that when it was built. I think it's a lot better than the Salvation Army, but I'm not sure that that is consistent with the master plan and the
No,
vision
went through
that
the same thing.
that we have. So yes, it makes sense that it's a property by property thing. Okay.
And just for your understanding, because this redevelopment plan, DRA 1 and DRA 2 are both very big redevelopment plans, it is almost inevitable that every big project that comes in is going to see amendments. So that doesn't mean that we can't scrutinize all of them in the way that we are tonight, but because each property is perhaps topographically or geometrically or whatever unique, this process is something that is common.
Okay, I'm gonna open it up to the public unless, Bill?
Just one other question, and it has nothing to do actually whether we approve this or not. But anyone who's at the redevelopment agency, when the things were being discussed, they talk about off-site parking. You give me a clue where that is, because there's nothing there.
So the off-site parking is gonna be worked out with the county, that's the way I understand it. The county's building the county project there, and on the bottom.
But that's in the back.
Well, but it goes all the way down to the recycling center. So they'll be on the recycling side.
You have to walk a block.
So you gotta walk down, so it's, okay.
And that's not definite yet, that there's like a two-part to this where if they get the parking,
Yeah, I don't know where they are in the process, but it depends on how many spots they get, on how many apartments they build. The agreement was, I think, 17 to 21 with the redevelopment agency, depending how many spots they buy from the county.
Okay, at this point in time, I'm gonna open up the meeting to the public for any questions that you guys may have. If you care to comment, please come up to the microphone. I need your name and your address, and
We don't need to swear them in. I don't know, since this isn't a hearing necessarily. This is not like a section
Yeah, I
2
don't
hearing,
think-
so they're
they're not
technically
professionals or
testifying.
anything, so
Right.
I don't think so.
Okay.
You okay with that? Anyone care to comment? Question? No? All right, I'm going to close the public session. Okay, so back to where we started. Tonight's resolution is we send back something to the town saying, to the council saying, we find it's consistent or inconsistent. If we find it consistent, but we have a concern about something, we can file that and just simply say, you know, we suggest that you consider it. Is that essentially the end product? You okay with that? All right, to get there, we've had substantial discussion on it. I will just summarize my comments by saying you have a unique situation here. The items that are being requested to be changed are not, and I'm not going to use the word consistent or inconsistent, they're not dramatically different than most of the other lots. There's a reasonable explanation for why. For example, the parking is in the front, not the back. There's a reasonable explanation as to the size of the particular units in there, and that's subject to council, not us. So you can't say that because you don't like the square footage of the units that it's not consistent, so, because there is no square footage in the master plan. So we have to just be careful that if we say it's inconsistent, there has to be a very specific thing that's not consistent. And if we can't do that, then I think we should make the approval of this and then comment on it, if that's what you want. But my own opinion is I don't see anything in here that causes me to say it's not consistent with the master plan. So at this point, what I would like to hear is if somebody wants to make a motion, that's fine. If somebody wants to discuss it, that's fine. But remember, we're just making a recommendation to the council. Brian?
Want me to make the recommendation that they'll approve ordinance 24 and go forward with it?
Yeah.
With the conditions that, you know, we'd like to,
Hold on the
not a
conditions.
condition,
You
but
don't make
a
conditions.
There's no conditions, it's just a follow.
a recommendation about the square footage of the studio apartments.
Right.
Make a recommendation, I think we can, right?
You
can.
You can comment, yes.
We can make, so if we could stipulate that, that would be great.
And they can either accept it or
Exactly.
ignore it. So, what is your specific,
I get a motion, you don't have a
That-
second.
so you made the motion
that we
to
accept it.
accept, to say that it is consistent?
Mm-hmm, yes.
Okay, I need a second.
Second.
Second, who was that? Okay, Sean. All right, discussion on the motion.
Sean voting tonight
Am I voting
as an
tonight?
alternate?
What do we have? He's first alternate,
He's full person.
but we don't have anybody missing from the board, right?
So we need
So,
somebody else to second.
so somebody else has to second it then.
I'll second it.
Okay, Paul Bowlby seconded it.
Who was the first? I'm sorry.
That was, Brian Otto.
Motion for the recommendation approval.
To find that the plan is consistent with the master plan. The ordinance would say that that this project is consistent with the master plan.
Like not inconsistent, but.
Good so far?
Yes, good so far.
Okay. Comments back to the council can come from us if the board agrees. So the second part of this would be, if somebody wants to add to that, somebody has to propose that, at least in my opinion, second it and vote on it. Correct?
Yes.
Okay. Over to you all.
I recommend that we propose that the residential living spaces in the building be no smaller than the proposed one-bedroom, what's been.
So that's
included in
the
there.
550 square feet one, is it?
That was 625.
625.
625.
Yeah.
Yeah, 625, right. Instead of 650, okay. So there's a motion. to include that.
And I'll second that if you need one.
Okay, so, yeah, so we have Bill and we have John Keating. And the motion for that is to add a comment to the council saying that we're not, what's the word you use, Bill? We're not in agreement about the size of the small units?
We just recommend
Just
that the
concern?
units be no smaller than the one bedroom. That's all.
Okay. So that becomes the second, you're okay with that?
Yes.
Okay. So comments on that before we vote? Yes.
I would actually argue that even though I did want to bring it up as something to think about, this is kind of the question of, is something allowed by omission or not allowed by omission? And I personally think that since nothing was stated in particular, that it is by default compliance with the master plan. We could maybe recommend to the council to look at it and see the particular reason why these spaces need to be smaller. But ultimately, our job is to see if this is consistent with the master plan. And I think that because this was omitted, it is by default compliance.
And that's what we voted on. So you're correct, we did vote on that, we did approve it, and now we're at a point where if the board chooses, they can, with comment, send it back to the council with a determination of consistency with the master plan and comment.
Understood.
Alex, that works for you?
Does,
Okay.
yes.
I just have a question about that.
Yeah.
And I would be for the attorney. Because this came from the redevelopment agency, does this have to go back to the redevelopment agency then?
So the next step at this point, again, since these are just, it's an ultimate recommendations, the council can accept or reject it, but the statute itself, the report, which is ultimately the resolution, there's any other matters that the board deems appropriate, so these sort of comments, again, these can be included in the resolution for consideration by the governing body, but to my knowledge,
So
no,
question
at
is,
this
though,
point,
if
it's,
the governing body says, all right, we want to look at that, does that has to go back then to the redevelopment agency, correct? They can't make the change because they don't have plans and see all those things.
right.
It would have to go back to the board to do that.
I would have to look into that. I have not seen that happen. I don't know off the top of my head.
I'm guessing they would.
So I'm not,
Makes sense.
it certainly wouldn't hurt. I'm not sure if it would have to, only because say there was a scenario where the developer, well, A, was fine with it because they have to redo all of their math. So who knows if that would even be fine with it. But if the building did not have any change in density or appearance, I'm not sure to what extent the redevelopment agency would necessarily
They might change number
care.
of units there, right?
Theoretically, it could change the number of units, but if they got rid of studios and replaced all the 2s with 3s or something, perhaps it would be the same number of units. Like, I don't know, I would have to look at plans and it's a jigsaw puzzle, right? It would certainly probably be advisable to send it back to the redevelopment agency, and if the changes were negligible and both the developer and the redevelopment agency perhaps would be on board, it would be a very quick process. That's a best case scenario, though. I'm not sure how realistic that scenario
So
is.
just so the board is aware, we kind of shy away from the redevelopment side, shy away from 3-bedroom units because it does bring more children into the school systems. So that's why you'll see most of the buildings we build are 1 and 2 bedrooms. 3 bedrooms only because of COA obligation, it has to be some certain number of 3s. But we're not building 3s because we don't want to increase the number of students, so just keep that in mind.
Okay, so anybody else want to comment before we just take a vote on that motion by Mr. Pendexter? Okay, I need a roll call vote. Now, we didn't do a roll call vote on the other one yet, so let's do a roll call vote on the first one.
Consistency?
I'm sorry?
Ultimate
Consistent,
consistency?
yes.
Yes, we'll start
Let's
with
do a roll call
consistency.
that, and then we'll do a second roll call vote on this recommendation. So this is just for the consistency determination.
Which Brian motioned and second by Paul. Mr. Simone?
No, wait a minute.
That was motion?
Yeah, he's right.
That's the second one.
That's
No,
right.
it's the
That was
first
the
one.
first one.
Oh, that was the first one?
Yes.
Okay, that's fine. Yes, sorry.
Mr. Simone,
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Otto,
Yes.
Mr. Trost,
No.
Dr. Pendexter,
Yes.
Mr. Bowlby,
Yes.
Mr. Keating,
Yes.
and now Mayor,
Yes.
Councilwoman Kilburg.
No.
Do the alternates now vote?
No, well, talk to your chairman, but I'd say no.
No.
The alternates don't vote.
You should have 9 votes there.
I have 1, 2, 3, 4,
Oh, sorry,
5,
7.
6, 7, 8.
Should
Yes.
be 9, right?
No, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Eight. I see eight.
8.
Then 1 alternate can
My
vote.
alternate, yeah.
That would be sure.
Yes.
Somebody missing? Is somebody missing? Who's missing?
No, we
No, you're
still
missing
have an
that.
open position.
Oh, yes, the business.
Right.
Yes.
So that we have 9 and you counted Sean.
Sean is the 9th.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay, second motion was to make a recommendation. Comment back,
Comment back to council
right.
on the agreement, for its size, for bedrooms. And it was motioned by,
Bill?
sorry. Dr. Pendexter, and then second by John.
Mhm.
And Mr. Simone,
Yes.
Mr. Otto,
Yes.
Mr. Trost,
Yes.
Dr. Pendexter,
Yes.
Mr. Bowlby,
Yes.
Mr. Keating,
Yes.
Mayor Sarah,
No.
and Councilman Gilbert.
Yes.
And one last vote is, Sean, Dr.
No.
Lutzma? No.
Okay. That should complete this part of the application process. And now it just goes back to the council with our warm regards.
So the resolution that was brought up is no, because we have to reword it, right?
Reword it.
No, wait a minute.
Yeah.
Well, it just has to be added with the
The
comment.
language, yeah, the comment, yep.
So do you want to, we might still be able to do the resolution.
Yeah, hold on, let me just see.
Everybody has a copy of that, put that in your packet. Is the add-on to the resolution.
It's just page to bring up revision, right?
Yeah, I'm just trying to make sure this.
Can you put just
Yeah. I'm
adopted
trying
in
to
its
think.
current form,
Adopted in
period?
its current form,
Period,
period,
and then
yeah.
just say, the board also wants to
Yeah,
comment.
yes, with, we can say, yeah, we can leave this as is, and I think we just say,
Keep it completely as is, and then just add, in addition, the comment.
we'd like the governing body to consider the square footage of the,
Studio unit.
studio unit to be no smaller than 625 feet. I'll try to write that out. In addition.
You're still missing one board member.
No, we are. We have 9.
You had Anne Marie passed away.
Yeah, we got 2
You
alternates.
had,
at
you
7.
had Rich Fricaro,
Phil.
And Steve,
Steve
Angela.
Esler,
Phil. Yeah.
but you filled a regular position with.
Well, all I'm saying is, we should have 9 members total with the alternates. We have 9 members here.
You should have 11 members
With you guys.
total. If you count, we're 9 plus 2 alternates.
Was it 9 plus 2?
9 or 7?
Or 7 plus 2, I'm sorry.
It's 9, right?
7 plus 2.
2, 3, 4.
And we have 8 here
5,
tonight.
6, 7, 8.
We have everybody here. That's what I'm saying, we're missing a board member.
Yes. Sean should be sitting over there, but he's up here right now because of the next empty seat.
Yes, I should.
So there's a board member missing.
Okay, well, according to Liz's list, that's not on there, so we have to double check that. So there was no missing planning board person.
I kept, okay.
There is an empty seat. Steve
There is.
left, he moved out of town.
Rich Vaccaro.
Rich Vaccaro left.
And
he
Anne
moved out of
Marie
town.
passed
Anne Marie
away.
passed away. You only replaced 2 positions.
Okay.
There's no
No, I
position.
haven't.
There's no Rich. I don't think she was. Let me see, I have a list, but it's not.
Open position right here.
Okay.
Like my little diagram.
As an aside, the municipal land use law allows the planning board to be 7 members or 9 members. It's up to you.
Usually not.
So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 votes,
Right.
and then 9 with alternate.
Right.
So it was 9 total.
So this is 9
7 plus
or
2.
7, yeah.
Well, I
The
didn't-
zoning board
I
has
didn't tell
4.
Chris to vote. Chris is not on this vote.
No.
I know, I'm just saying. Don't leave without seeing me.
Okay, I'll have you read it. Sure. Okay, this is going to be the resolution that goes from the board to the council. May you please?
Let me read from the very beginning.
I'm sorry? The whole thing, yeah. It's short information.
Okay, and this is resolution, resolution 01-2025. Resolution regarding consistency of proposed ordinance 25-11 with master plan. Whereas the Borough Council has referred ordinance 25-11, an ordinance amending the downtown Pompton Lakes redevelopment plan as codified in section 190-84 of the Code of the Borough of Pompton Lakes, for review by this planning board pursuant to NJSA 40A:12A-7E, for review and identification of any provisions that are inconsistent with the borough's master plan and any other matters this board deems relevant. And whereas the planning board has reviewed the aforesaid draft ordinance and considered the matter at the public meeting held by the board on February 18th, 2025, now therefore be it resolved by the planning board of the Borough of Pompton Lakes on this 18th day of February 2025 that the proposed ordinance 2025-11 is consistent with the borough's master plan, and it is the recommendation of the planning board that ordinance number 25-11 be adopted in its current form without revision. In addition to the planning board's finding of consistency, the board desires the governing body to consider the square footage of the smallest unit to be no smaller than 625 square feet.
Anybody have any questions on that?
Yeah, isn't it, one statement cancels the other because it says without revision, and then we have a comment that says we're.
No, we can't revise
We
it.
can't revise it. This is just an extra comment for the
Okay.
governing body to consider, but we've made our recommendation of consistency. So again, this is just a little something extra, that we're letting the governing body know that we,
And we have council and the mayor, councilperson and the mayor here, I'm sure will be able to say at that meeting that this is why. So, yeah. Okay, so I need a vote, motion to pass the resolution. Right?
yes.
Okay. So I need a motion for approving resolution as modified by our attorney.
I'll make the
Motion?
motion.
Okay, Brian, second.
I'll second it.
Bill Pendexter. Any comments? Okay.
The only,
Hmm?
I do have comments on, particularly on the resolution or just.
Just
that.
whether you're okay with the resolution, nothing else.
Nothing else.
So that means that I, for instance, wouldn't be able to comment that they should also look at this other thing,
No.
for instance. Okay.
Okay, so with that, give a roll call vote, please.
Mr. Simone,
Yes.
Mr. Otto,
Yes.
Mr. Trost,
No.
Dr. Pendexter,
Yes.
Mr. Bowlby,
Yes.
Mr. Keating,
Yes.
Mayor Sarah,
Yes.
Councilwoman Kilburg,
Yes.
and Mr. Bootsma.
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, that completely concludes the application tonight. And on the agenda, there are no other applications, no conceptuals. Under unfinished business, appointment of Open Space Committee representative. Does anybody want to volunteer to be the Open Space Committee representative?
I kind of injected myself into that at the meeting the other night,
Okay, thank you, Paul.
unknowingly, but I'm glad to do it.
Okay,
So Paul?
yes, Paul. The representative to join the Master Plan Committee is not, sorry?
We have to vote on that since it's an appointment? No? Okay. I'm just,
He's just volunteering.
He's just being a good old guy.
good old guy.
I didn't realize what I was doing when I was.
I'll make sure
attending the
Santa
meeting, but
knows
like
you
I
were
said,
a
I'm
good
fine.
boy. How's that?
Great.
He's all right. Okay, representative to join the Master Plan Committee, and this is not the board committee, this is a municipal committee. So I'm going to appoint myself to that, because I would like to be on that.
What, I'm sorry.
Master Plan Committee, this is the one that Kristen is going to be.
So let's discuss that a little bit.
Okay, well, wait a minute, but
Well, there's no committee yet, really.
No, this is master plan, this is not the design.
No, I'm not talking about design.
Well-
We're not in, we shouldn't be talking about this.
okay, well, whatever, with the Master Plan Committee on
The
here is
master
for what?
plan review, which is
Oh,
right
well,
now,
so no, you know
John
what?
and myself.
Okay, so.
Because it was John, Rich, and myself.
Okay, so I'm gonna, that's my mistake, sorry. So I need another person to join John and Tim on the board's master plan committee.
I'll do it.
Brian,
Can you clarify what that committee does?
You were on the phone call with us the one night when we were here. It's the
Right, but
master plan review.
But you don't need a master plan for 2 more years.
That's what I'm trying to say, there's no reason to have it. We're not talking about, we're not putting money towards it, it's not even up in conversation, it's not up to 2 years.
I know that. I agree, but we decided
That's up
last
to you
year
guys.
to put together a committee to get a head start on it.
That's up to you guys.
So,
Mr. Chairman, and I believe it started with Steve Edgelever. He's the one that said, looking, say, for example, at the zoning map that's in there, it's outdated. And when we had an applicant come to the board and ask the question, they said, well, you can't deny it because in your master plan, that zone is zoned for what he's looking for, even though we all disagreed with it. So he said, well, going forward, if you disagree with something on it, change it now. Don't wait till an applicant comes and then it's too late. So it started by saying, let's just review and make sure it's updated. And is the zoning map still the way, I'll use the words, consistent with our master plan?
The zoning map and the master plan are 2 separate things. Like, we can update the zoning map, basically can update the zoning map when you need to. If it's a correction, you certainly can. If it's a change to the zoning, it's slightly more cumbersome to do outside of pairing it with the master plan, but it is possible.
Right, and that's what
But
we
your
figured,
master-
it's gonna be very lengthy service, so that's why we figured we'd meet once a month and once every 2 months, just to kind of get familiar with it, so that when it does come, and it's 2 years from now, we'll be ready with some changes or recommendations that we have.
I mean,
The
sure.
other is, what you recommended was, in the redevelopment, in there's recommendations that were left off in 2017. Do we still want to keep those, or are they going to be changing in 2027?
If you guys want to meet for 2 years before we work on it, be my guest, but I don't want you to think that your master plan is up for renewal yet.
Right. But I did see the last meeting, Tim, and thanks for bringing some of these things up. There might be a difference of opinion of if it's going to be redone or a brand new one in 2027.
Absolutely. You could either have a reexamination or a full-blown master plan which are 2 very different scopes and different heavier lifts. You know, a master plan is a significantly heavier lift than a re-examination.
Exactly.
So if you want to take 2 years to prepare for that, be my guest. I just want to make sure we all understand that the actual date of you being due for a new master plan or re-examination is 2027.
It's March 2027, so it's not,
Well, it doesn't have to, I don't think it has to be like 10 years to the month. It has to be within that calendar year as far as I understand it. So it doesn't matter if you do it in January or December.
So we have 2 years, which includes,
a year's worth of work on your part, or 6 to 8 months on your part
Yeah.
to
Yeah,
put
well-
the plan or re-exam together.
A re-examination is 6 to 8 months. A master plan is more than that. But if you had a goal of, let's just say December of 2027, that's something that we should talk about mid 2026, or, well, we would talk about it in early 2026 to talk about the budgets. But, I mean, it's still a little ways off. But it does, depending on what month you want that to be ready to go public, sure, if you want it to be in January, then we would certainly need to start effectively a year earlier than if you wanted it to be in December. That's absolutely accurate, yeah.
and I'm of the opinion that we don't help ourselves by pushing it off to the end of 27.
It
That's just my
depends.
opinion.
It could go either way, because if you do it on the if there's something that is pressing, say there's some change either locally that you need to get ahead of, or globally. So a lot of towns made changes in the aftermath of COVID because commuting patterns and such had changed so significantly for them. So if there's something that's pressing, you might want to do it sooner. If there's not something that's pressing, it might behoove you to wait a little bit to make sure nothing comes up along the way. Because the worst annoying thing that could happen is you adopt a master plan in June, and then in like July, we have COVID-27, and weird things start happening, and we wish we had folded that into the master plan. So
But it's the same thing as adopting something in December of 27 and something comes up in March of 28.
It is.
Something that's completely,
Right. No, of course, there's always a chance that something could happen right after you've done all of the work. But if you do something in December of 27 and something happens in 28, you at least have the excuse that, well, we had to do it in 27.
And the other thing to keep in mind from our town's perspective, it's a very costly thing, especially if you go with the new one. We'd have to put major funds together to make that happen. This is not just a kind of, let's go do this kind of thing. This is a very expensive proposition.
Yeah, it is important that you talk amongst yourselves, and I can confer with you, but as to if you need a full-fledged master plan or just a re-examination, also there's master plans have elements, so there's like the land use element, which is one of the required elements, but then there are some optional elements, some related to sustainability, and open space and things like that. And sometimes what a town might do is say, well, we're just going to do the re-examination, but we'd like to create a new element around this topic, and that's how we're going to spend our money. So it really, not a bad idea to talk about your priorities. If you're meeting now, talk about your priorities and figure out how you want to focus the effort when that time does come.
Thank you.
If you all are willing to meet periodically, John and Tim and Brian, then I still think it's advantageous to, while things are fresh in your mind, something happens in town and it may, like the car wash, thinking back, having that not excluded from our zone. We had to approve it because it could be challenged, so at least that sticks in my mind as something that could change. And I'd like to make sure that we consider, just as we go along, if you find something, just jot it down on a note. And then when we sit down with you guys to talk about the actual plan, maybe some of those notes and then the events over the next 12 months will dictate which way we go. I don't want to predetermine it.
Yep.
But I also don't want to assume we're going to do a re-examination and then find out that we need to do a full plan and we started too late. So,
Well, one of the things we talked about in the thought process was, again, budget's always the issue, but we have a plan and we have an amendment, so to speak. We have the first re-examination to the plan. And then we're gonna have a second re-examination or the second amendment to the plan. So now, somebody wants to do something in town, they gotta look at the plan, then they gotta look at re-exam number 1, look at re-exam number 2, see what changed here, what went from here to here, when we went backwards, and maybe we put something back in. So for ease of interpretation and consistency, a new master plan will probably be the way to go.
that's not inconsistent with my thinking.
But whether or not we have the funding to do that is,
Well, that's why I kind of wanted to spark it, because I just don't want to find out that, all of a sudden there's no money to do what we really should be doing. If we determine that it's a full master plan, I don't want to surprise the borough with, you got $100,000 extra sitting around, I don't know.
Possibly noted.
So, all right.
that was part of the thought process to start now.
Yeah, so just, I would like to continue the process of us doing it, and we each, I got you copies of the booklets about the master plan. The master plan is kind of voluminous, but do we have any extra copies of the actual master plan in the office? No?
Rich, did he give you his back? I thought he gave you his back that one night.
I think there's a PDF of it. Do you have a PDF? I have a PDF of it.
Okay.
Okay.
That might be good to have
I'll
to the
take the
committee.
PDF, I'll give you my book.
No,
Either way, as
I
long-
do have an extra one for Rich, I forgot. Did he give it back to me? I don't remember.
Oh, he did.
He did?
If he did, please give it to Brian, and in the meantime, if you can get the PDF, maybe it's better to deal with the PDF and then go from there. So at your leisure, gentlemen.
I have the PDF as well.
Okay.
Now iPad.
Let's see. And that's it for tonight. Open this meeting to the public once again, if there's any comments on this or anything else. Seeing none, we'll close the meeting to the public. Anybody have anything else to add for tonight? And if not, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
One question on an unrelated topic. What's going
Unrelated.
on with that property on Hamburg Turnpike? The one that built the...
With the wall?
With the retaining wall. Any updates on that?
Yeah, they've worked out agreements with the engineers, it's just getting them back to do the written agreement, but it's their engineers who are gonna be responsible for making it right and signing off on the wall, and if there's ever an issue, it's their signature that's on the wall. So yes, they are worked out an agreement and working towards making it happen.
Good.
And while we're talking about it, I know some people are talking, if you've driven by the old CGM building, they are putting new steel in now. They started working on the back of that, so that is moving along. So they actually started building that. Like I mentioned, just today I got an email that the permits for the Civic Center were approved, so they will start rebuilding our new Civic Center now. Hopefully within a month or two, we should have our building back with a storage area upstairs, a women's locker room for our police officers, two new rooms, kitchen, whole setup.
Okay. Anything else, Tim?
That was it?
Anybody else have any questions? No? Okay, I'll take a motion to adjourn, please.
Motion.
Motion by Mr. Trost,
Second.
second by Mr. Bowlby. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Nobody ever opposes it, I don't understand.
I'm still confused about the number, because if I count, that means there'd be 10, 9, and 2 alternates.
7.
7 plus you two
It's 9.
and 2 alternates.
That's 11. So are we
Correct.
saying we have 11 on the board?
You could have 9 plus 2, that's.
Well, I just want to make sure that's what we're saying we have.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
That's what I'm saying. I hear 10.
How many are members, not the alternates?
There's 7 members plus the class
We closed the meeting, right?
Yes.
Plus,
I'm out of here.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's 5 members right at this time.
Well, 6, count.
No, there's not, there's 6.
6, sorry, 6.
Which there should be an odd number, so we need 7.
Seven
We're
members,
missing
2
a
alternates.
Missing
member.
1 member.
Right, so
We're
then it's
missing-
11 total.
Yes.
We're missing a member, we have 2
So
alternates.
it's 11 total. I just want to make sure everybody understands, it's 11, not 10.
Right now, we're 10.
But right now, it's
That's what I'm counting.
it's basically 7 Class 4 members.
Right, so it's 11 total.
Kevin,
Yeah, that's it.
Okay, I'm stopping.
Two more.